Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. All right, guys. Today is day June the 4th, 2025, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are priding ourselves on being a news podcast, which means we only cite from reputable sources with award-winning journalism. We don't do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, Daily Beast, wherever extreme left or extreme right you get your views from. We simply don't do that. We just simply provide you the information. At the same time, guys, we do try to watch your language as being professionals on here, but hey, sometimes words do fly. At the same time, guys, maybe things down here that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers. So your discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So how do we start off this wonderful podcast? How about something funny? I mean, really funny. Like to the point to where, like most things in life, I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with Pokemon or things of that nature or just evolution in general, but I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, we can now no longer call F-47 F-47. Let's now refer to his new name, Taka.
Hello, everybody. How are you? You all ready about that situation? I think we're...
Mr. President, Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out?
Chicken out.
Oh, and then I chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And I said you have to open up your whole country. And because I gave the European Union a 50% tax tariff. 6 months ago, this country was stone cold dead. We had a dead country. We had a country people didn't think it was going to survive, and you ask a nasty question like that. And in many ways, I think we really helped China tremendously because, they were having great difficulty because we were basically going cold turkey with China. We were doing no business because of the tariff, because it was so high. But I knew that. But don't ever say what you said. That's a nasty question.
It's a nasty question, really? But it's truthful. Whenever you do tariffs, and because he calls himself a tariff man, and because he decides that, I'm just going to sit there and, for lack of better words, basically sit there and say, well, I'm going to redirect and think about this, and I'll. So you basically, sorry about that, guys. So let me get this right. So the whole thing that he's trying to say here is that, well, I just think that I think it's a very nasty question for you to ask, and how dare you? I'm like, but it's honesty. I mean, you're gonna get mad because you don't want to acknowledge the fact that whenever it does come down to the deadline, you turn around and say, wait, I changed my mind. I'm going to extend it. Or try to stand and say, well, they called me and begged me. Remember how he tried to say about the EU? He tried to say that about the EU. He tried to say that about China. He tried to say this about everybody he put tariffs on. And yes, the other side has never been able to sit there and go, we didn't say that. That was you. And it's amazing where taco now comes into place. Trump always chickens out. We now have a new name for F-47. He has evolved to Taco. I know it's amazing to me how he gets offended trying to say, well, it was a dead country. We weren't a dead country, sir. There were no zombies. There were no undead. It was the fact that you thought it was dead because you spent most of your campaign blaming a man for overspending. And in turn, you overspent way more than him in less than 100 days. This man had 4 years. You had 100 days and you outdid him. Bravo. At the same time, he tries there and say, well, China was having problems too. Well, anybody who pays attention to the news or just has a smartphone in general will quickly find out that's a lie. China's fine. Matter of fact, China doesn't even need the U.S. because again, they have bigger markets outside of us and doing just fine in those markets. What he really should have said was, oh, well, because of the fact that, we have become more consumers than producers, that yes, a lot of our stuff that you usually purchase now comes from overseas because we've allowed companies to take advantage of other countries' labor rates and labor rules, I guess you could say, and the fact that they don't have to pay their employees much in these other countries. These companies that once did produce in America now produce overseas. So what's the cause and effect? Well, now America has went from producing to consuming, which then China has been pretty much the king of manufacturing, has sat there and said, cool. That means for what we have to buy from you guys is much less from what you have to get from us. So I just find it funny that he turns around and says, well, China's doing terrible. No, China's doing fine. It's just in your mind, which again, how has he been declared mentally fit for presidential duties is beyond me, especially now, because it's becoming painfully obvious that this man does not need to be president, is still going to sit there and get mad because, yes, Wall Street gave you a brand new name, Taco, and it fits. Work with it accordingly, sir. But speaking of things that, are working with accordingly, Elon Musk, I know bringing him up is like bringing up the boogeyman. I sincerely apologize. But it's amazing how we can actually say after all said and done, as we've seen, if you've seen last week's 60 Minutes on CBS, where they interviewed Elon Musk, I think the honeymoon's over.
Explained why he doesn't want to take responsibility for everything the administration is doing. That's a direct quote. He said it during a CBS interview. Let's take a listen.
And I'm a little stuck in a bind where I'm like, well, I don't want to, speak out against the administration, but I don't want to. I also don't want to take responsibility for everything the administration is doing.
All right, Jay, let's back up. It was just months ago. He was proudly wielding that chainsaw across the stage, vowing to hack away at our government. Now, all of a sudden, he has a change of heart.
And relishing what he was doing then. It's unclear what he's talking about there in terms of potential disagreements he could have. But one of those disagreements that he talked about in that interview was the administration's support for that bill you and I were just talking about. He said that a bill could be big or it could be beautiful, but in his view, it couldn't, quote unquote, be both. That's obviously a direct knock on the fact that Republicans on the Hill and in the White House, especially the president, have compiled this massive vehicle of legislation that's really this laundry list of President Trump's campaign promises, all in this legislation, which the president calls his quote unquote one big beautiful bill. And we saw how Elon Musk's comments when he made them last week on this bill. The question then becomes, if Elon Musk is out of the administration as he is, does he continue to make comments like that, like what you just played as well, that potentially change the political calculus? And do they have sway amongst congressional Republicans, for example, and those on the Hill who previously, until he left the administration, were really hanging on his every word, Kira, and they were mindful of the fact that Elon Musk, while he might not be a special government employee anymore, still has billions to burn in political donations in any upcoming election.
And this is why I say the honeymoon is over. Because Elon Musk has, well, let's be honest, he got what he wanted. He was basically considered a special government employee, although he was never elected to Congress. He has cut multiple jobs, gutted the FAA, and yet got his own company and got a Starlink a contract with the FAA. He's also introduced Teslas in almost more areas of government, so it's another contract there. At the same time, his Doge was really some BS They found no savings. In fact, they actually wrecked some areas and tried to get access to Social Security and IRS tax data for individuals. What I'm getting at is, folks, is that Elon Musk sat there and said, I'm going to help Trump. Well, I should say in this case, I'm going to help Taco get in the White House, which means I get in the White House. And as long as I'm there, because here's the thing, the most disrespectful thing that we've seen is that they are in the Oval Office and he's speaking, standing, and Taco's sitting down like a 5-year-old that's waiting on his food. And it amazes me so that Elon, after all said and done, was like, well, I don't want to take accountability. I mean, I should take accountability for everything. Yeah, you should. You were supposedly the guy who claimed he can find trillions of dollars in wasteful spending. You were the guy that said we're going to quote unquote send money back after finding said savings. You didn't find it. Doge didn't find it. At the same time, you basically were allowed to run roughshod, unchecked in government, and yet somehow you are not seeing the inside of a jail cell. Yeah, if I say anything, Mr. Elon, you got extremely lucky. But I guess the reason why you're leaving couldn't have been about the fact that, maybe you might have been under the influence of some enhancements on your trip. Because I just wondered, because everybody kept wondering, and it's been said that Elon likes to partake, if you will, even having some of the party favors on him. And I just find it funny as that story gets more deeper and deeper, Elon decides to say, well, I'm out. I'm going back to my companies. I'm not saying it's a coincidence. I'm just saying interesting timing. But no, this whole Elon Musk experiment was a failure for America, but it's great for him because his contracts are still encased. His companies, although Tesla has taken a major hit, now he has to go back and try to fix that brand. But I'm sorry, that brand is pretty much caca. But at the same time, I don't want to take accountability. And you turn around and said that his big, beautiful bill is big, beautiful BS. That lets me know the honeymoon is over. I'm just saying. Just lets me know the honeymoon is over. But again, this whole experiment with Dodge trying to find spending, wasteful spending and whatnot was a complete and utter failure. And it just needs to be admitted as much. But hey, the honeymoon's over. I wonder who's going to get the kids in the divorce. Moving right along, guys. Sometimes sober, not really. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has decided a few things. First, since it's Pride Month, and of course, happy Pride Month to all the LGBTQ plus members out there. But never sober Pete Hegseth has sat there and said, you know what? On this particular month, we're going to rename some ships over that were actually named after famous civil rights leaders and prominent politicians. Yes, he chose Pride Month to make this announcement and others.
Order to rename a ship. This morning, a gay rights icon is set to be stripped of a major military honor as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth orders the Navy to rename the USNS Harvey Milk.
Harvey Milk was a hero. He was a veteran who then died for our community.
The ship is named after the first openly gay man elected to office. Milk, who served in the Navy, joined the San Francisco Board of Supervisors before he was assassinated in 1978.
I know you're angry! I'm angry!
His life memorialized in the award-winning movie Milk.
We've got to give him hope.
But according to a newly released memo, Secretary Hegseth is demanding the Navy remove Milk's name from the ship to better reflect the Trump administration's priorities. The timing during Gay Pride Month drawing criticism. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi calling it a shameful, vindictive erasure of those who fought to break down barriers. The move is part of a larger effort by the Trump administration to reestablish what it calls the warrior culture of the military.
No more gender confusion, no more climate change worship. We are laser focused on our mission of warfighting.
And the Pentagon says the new campaign is working. For the first time in more than a decade, the Army has now met its recruitment goals, months ahead of schedule. But previous changes made to recruiting methods may get more of the credit, including a new program for recruits who don't make the cut.
One of the biggest things is really something called the Future Soldier Prep Course. It's a camp to help potential new recruits boost their academic scores and boost their physical fitness so that they can meet the requirements for the U.S. Army.
As for replacing Harvey Milk's name on that ship, the Pentagon says any renaming will come after an.
So what's crazy about this is, leave it to drunk Secretary Pete Hegseth to sit there and say, well, we have to have our army reflect, we have to have our armed forces reflect our current fake ass dictator regime. Oh, so that means that you're basically going to say, we don't care if you're smart or dumb, as long as you want to serve the president with undying loyalty? Cool. Yes, Harvey Milk, if you don't know who he is, famous politician, also served in the Navy, and again, was fighting for gay rights at the time. And of course, if you know his story, he was assassinated. And so a supply ship was named after him, which PK says, no. And this lets you know off the bat, Republicans don't respect the armed forces. They don't. They can say we support the troops all we want to. You don't. Because now you want to whitewash history. Why? Because you don't want one of your supply ships to reflect a gay rights activist. Because the warrior mentality. Let me tell you something. What kills me is, what about these would-be guys? And for all those who are wondering, yes, Pete Hegseth did serve in the National Guard on vacation. And I'm not disrespecting the National Guard. I'm just saying him. This man is always about, well, we got to get back to the warrior mentality. Army has never had a problem with that. It's the thing that you have folks like you who have been, shouting from the rooftops of a fake ass news station. Now you've been put in position to where you are in control of the nation's armed forces, that you want to hear some warrior mentality. Oh, well, we're getting rid of gender bias. We're getting rid of climate change worship. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, so you like your soldiers dumb. That explains a lot. You're dumb, so therefore you like your soldiers dumb. Even more so where they're like, oh, well, our recruitment numbers are up because you have a fit class for those wanting to join the Army. That's all it is. And I love how they sit there and say, well, this warrior class is to help those that, didn't make the cut actually make it academically and physically for the Army. You're telling me that you decided to make the equivalent of No Child Left Behind for those wanting to join the Army. I'm a little concerned. I am. But at the same time, guys, here's also where I'm concerned at. I am concerned at where this is not going to stop. Keep in mind, there are ships out there. There are ships and bases named after civil rights leaders like Harriet Tubman, Thurgood Marshall. I can keep going on. But there are ships bases, and locations out there that are named for these prominent historical figures. And now we find that they want to whitewash everything. So yes, it's not just going to stop with milk. It's going to move on to other things as well. Mark my words, this is just the beginning, because they love it. Because here's the thing about history. History should be brutal, should be ugly. It should be the cold truth. And yet, whenever it comes to America, they want to give this rosy, open blue sky, we did everything right by the book history, and you didn't. And the thing about it is, there always seems to be a certain group of individuals, napkins, that seem to be at the forefront of every disastrous event in history. And it's like, you guys don't want to acknowledge that one group was responsible for their virus-like behavior on other races in history. But you don't want to talk about that. You rather whitewash everything. Typical. Cover it up when it suits you, but brag when it helps you. It's crazy. But speaking of doing things that help you or brag about things, so acting FEMA director made a joke that currently right now, USA has a hurricane season. The FEMA director decided to sit there and say, I didn't know the U.S. had a hurricane season. You're the acting FEMA director. Hurricanes and natural disasters are usually your backyard. When a tornado hits, there you are. When a hurricane hits, there you are. Flooding, things of that nature. You are there to assist the citizens. Unless Trump denies people like he denied North Carolina. That being said, the White House press secretary had her hands full. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. how hard? I mean, she lies so effortlessly that she makes the previous one, Sarah What's Her Face, she makes her look like a freaking saint. I'm not lying.
Well, of course, we know that we are into hurricane season now, and I know FEMA is taking this seriously, contrary to some of the reporting we have seen based on jokes that were made and leaks from meetings. But Secretary Kristi Noem and the FEMA leadership are all over this. They are committed to ensuring that federal resources and tax dollars are there for Americans in need. And the president continues to review requests for emergency aid and carefully considering them. However, this president has made it clear we're not going to enable states to make bad decisions with federal tax dollars and then have the federal government later have to bail these states out. We want to see states be responsible with their tax dollars to do as much as they possibly can. And then the president will deeply and thoughtfully consider any requests for federal aid that come to his desk. And I think some of the media reporting we've seen on this is frankly sloppy and irresponsible. There are serious people who are taking this issue seriously, starting with the president himself, who, as you know, on his first domestic trip back in office, visited both North Carolina and California, both of which were, of course, hit by natural disasters when he wasn't even president. But he took ownership of that and visited those places. And
what she's not saying, folks, is that North Carolina did ask for help, including the senator for North Carolina did ask for help from Taco, and Taco denied them. He also denied California because, well, him and Governor Newsom don't really get along. So, yes, you can visit all you want to, but did you do anything? No. At the same time, they brush it off as a joke. And this alone screams to me the level of people that shouldn't be in charge of anything. I am just flat out saying it. Should not be in charge of anything. Even more so that, compromised director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has decided that maybe we need to start looking at Fox News on how to brief our president. Gee, I wonder why.
Maybe one more thing to talk about. Over the weekend, we saw the president repost another baseless conspiracy theory on Truth Social. This time, it was about former President Biden. Now, normally, we may not want to share such outlandish misinformation with our viewers, but the president does have nearly 10 million followers on social media, so it's on Truth Social. So it's important to set the record straight. Tell us, what did he say this time, and what kind of pushback are we seeing?
And I'll echo your caution here because we don't usually repeat something that is so outlandish and baseless. But the president reposted an online post without context, by the way. He didn't add any commentary to it. But the person that he reposted said that former President Biden had been executed and that he was actually replaced with clones and robots that were doing the job for him. Again, this is, of course, completely unfounded. President Biden has also been clear, not only is he dealing with sort of the challenges of being out of office, but there's also this idea that the president is also dealing with prostate cancer right now and going through treatment for that. So it's really not only a baseless claim, but also a claim that it's attacking someone who is going through a real health crisis. We don't know why President Trump reposted this. The White House is declining to comment, but this is not, of course, the first time that he's reposted baseless claims, and I'm sure it will not be the last. But President Trump has not been shy about spreading conspiracy theories. In some ways, it largely, in some ways, at least partly, if not largely, got him elected because a lot of his supporters do believe in the things that he says, whether they're baseless or true. So just another, I think, a chapter of President Trump saying something that just is not true.
Okay. And I have to apologize for that because it's part of it. Kind of part of it because, again, that didn't go exactly what I wanted it to go. I did want to get into Tulsi Gabbard talking about she wanted to change the news briefings just because of the fact of, well, to make it easier for Trump to understand. That's it. But all Trump does is watch Fox News. That's it. That's all he does is watch Fox News. And again, I'm just going to point this out before we get to what he said about Biden. But actually, this is the video I wanted to show.
Let me quickly get to the new NBC News exclusive in which you and some of our colleagues, Gordon, are reporting National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard is considering ways to revamp Trump's intelligence briefing. What does a revamp mean, and why does she think this is necessary?
Yeah, so the PDB, as it's known, the Presidential Daily Briefing, is a highly classified briefing that presidents typically choose to take on different intervals, typically every day, not always. This president has taken, I think, 14 times since the inauguration in January. But what I think Gabbard is trying to do is just to, and this is often done, essentially tailor this document, this product, this intelligence product, to suit the consumption desires of this president, which is fine. Making it into a document that, or into a product that he will absorb and listen to. The PDB is very important because how it is framed and what is included in it really does have an effect on how the president sees the world, literally. And so I think what they're trying to do, and what my colleagues and I reported early this morning, was that they wanted to make it so it would be something that he could consume and absorb.
Make it something he can consume and absorb. They want to dumb it down. This man obviously does not get up at 8 a.m. like other presidents have done. This man is not well versed in his briefings. They want to, how can I put this? They want to give a Miss Rachel version of intelligence briefings to this man. It's like, hi, hello, Mr. President. We're going to tell you about Israel and Palestine. Israel, good. Palestine, terrorist. That's what I think it's going to be. But what's scary about this is that she wants to go to Fox News. Again, not a news station. The Dominion lawsuit, which I will point out every chance I get, has proven Fox has went on paper and said, we are an entertainment network. We are not a news network. And I'm still mad, Dominion, because Dominion could have gave us the greatest court session in history, watching Fox News and its anchors all be put on trial. We could have had wonderful television for a few weeks. I'm still mad for that, Dominion. But the thing I'm getting at is here, not only does she want to change it to a format that he's used to, because trust me, Trump watches Fox News all the time. But now you want to include a news station with sensitive information. How many ways can that go wrong? Especially from a person who's already compromised and yet is the director of national intelligence. I am just saying that's a train wreck way to happen. But yes, going back to Trump and his crazy conspiracies, as we did show in the previous video, yes, he wants to sit there and say, well, I think Biden's been replaced by cyborgs. What? Well, he's been replaced by cyborgs. He's been dead since 2020. He's been executed since 2020. Here's the scary part about all this is. The scary part about this is, as they said, his cult will believe it. When your cult believes something, they will take it as gospel and run with it. But here's the scary part of all this. They will run with it. And, just like they did Let's Go Brandon, it'll take on a life of its own. But no, the president is not a clone. They have not fixed cybernetics, and robotics have not gotten to that level of Terminator status to where somebody can be replaced by anybody knowing. It's just a 80-plus-year-old former president with a cancer diagnosis that, it's his business to know. And that actually leads to our next thing, because you would think for Republicans, you have bigger fish to fry. Your Taco wants to push through his bill that will effectively keep people off Medicare and Medicaid, give tax breaks to his torpid buddies, and at the same time put a lot of Americans in a lot more hurt than what they already are. Republicans are dodging their constituents, which is another video I'll show in a moment. But you would think they would have bigger fish to fry. Nope. They also are concerned for the former president.
Former President Biden's late-stage cancer diagnosis is raising new questions about his previous health screenings. President Trump is now asking if the public could have been notified earlier when Biden was in office. ABC's Nicole D'Antonio has details. Nicole, good morning.
Andrew, good morning to you. President Trump spoke candidly about Biden's cancer diagnosis. He also suggested the timeline of Biden's illness should be investigated. This morning, former President Biden's cancer diagnosis is drawing new questions about his health while in the White House.
I think people should try and find out what happened.
President Trump called Biden's cancer diagnosis sad while appearing to cast doubt on Biden's doctors.
Maybe it was the same doctor and somebody is not telling the facts. That's a big problem.
Biden's team said doctors diagnosed him Friday with an aggressive form of prostate cancer after he experienced urinary symptoms and say the cancer had spread to the bones. President Trump now suggesting without evidence that the announcement was delayed.
I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago, because to get to stage 9, that's a long time.
President Trump inaccurately referred to Biden's diagnosis as stage 9, a likely reference to his Gleason score of 9. That scale out of 10 measures how aggressive cancer cells appear to be. Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, an oncologist who served in the Obama and Biden administrations, claimed Biden's cancer has likely been active for many years.
Oh, he's had this for many years, maybe even a decade, growing there and spreading.
Biden's last physical as president was in 2024 when routine tests identified no new concerns. But medical records do not indicate whether he was given a PSA test, which detects prostate cancer. Men over 70 are typically not recommended for the test. That's because guidelines say many men of that age group will experience false positives and treatment complications.
The screening test itself, the PSA, is an imperfect screening methodology for identifying the kind of prostate cancer that is most impactful and aggressive to men.
This all comes as Biden deflects criticisms sparked by a new book, Original Sin, which claims Biden's aides took steps to shield the public from his cognitive decline. Naomi Biden, the former president's granddaughter, slamming the book, calling it uninspired lies written by irresponsible, self-promoting journalists out to make a quick buck. Now, meanwhile, a prostate specialist at Duke University calls the timeline of Biden's diagnosis, quote, perfectly reasonable and not medically unusual.
And honestly, none of our business. It's none of our business. Guys, it is literally none of our business. I don't know how else I can say this. It's none of our business. And it's like, well, that must mean that the president must have knew about this during his run, and that's why he left. Okay, it's still none of our business. Because even though his prostate cancer diagnosis did not mess with the fact that the decisions that he made were the right decisions for the majority of them. Now, you may agree or disagree with some of the decisions that he made in Congress, but at least he didn't make crazy ass theories. At least he didn't, try to wreck anything that's actually more meaningful toward the American people. And he acted like a president. It's just the fact that, yes, he was a little bit older. Yes, his diagnosis meant that he was probably not the best person to run for another term. Had he should have left at the end of his first term, I'll be at the end of his term. He should have said so. Yes, to give Kamala, to give my former Vice President Harris, yeah, should have gave her enough time to run and really get to know the people. But she still did a lot. She did a lot of time she was given. That being said, Republicans always find the other ways to get themselves involved in things instead of doing things to the American people. They're like, well, we want to know why this happened. This is not Benghazi. This is not Benghazi. This is not this ain't this isn't Hunter Biden's laptop. This isn't Hillary Clinton's private server. The man is dealing with a diagnosis right now that is life-threatening, and above all else, it's his business. It's not for Republicans to sit there and hold freaking hearings on why they weren't informed. Because if we're being honest, you guys decided to push a bill that literally is terrible for the American people and swear you didn't read it. We should be having you guys' brains checked. Just saying. But speaking of things, though, again, this is what's so scary about being an immigrant in the U.S. when the Supreme Court, again, Trump's favorite fast food court, has made another decision that makes, and I don't blame immigrants. I don't blame people now, whether you're illegal or not. you're hesitant to do anything now, especially after this ruling.
Breaking news, the Supreme Court is clearing the way for the Trump administration to strip temporary legal protections for hundreds of thousands of immigrants. The nation's highest court granted the administration's request to revoke a humanitarian parole for more than 530,000 immigrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. For more, I want to bring in ABC News senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer for more on this. And Devin, this would push the total number of people who could be newly exposed to deportation to nearly 1 million. So how significant is this ruling?
Well, this is a very significant ruling in terms of the number of people impacted, Alex. Over 500,000 people, as you said, that were allowed into the country by the Biden administration from those 5 countries. Under a program known as humanitarian parole. These people did not have legal status in the country. This was, to be sure, a temporary program granted by the Department of Homeland Security on a discretionary basis during the Biden years. The justification was to relieve some of the strain at the border, to vet these people that were coming into the country, allow them in for humanitarian reasons. Likely, the administration said at that time, because many of these people would be eligible to stay in the country. But the Trump administration taking a very different tact. And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem immediately revoking the status categorically of all those immigrants back in March. A federal district judge said that that was arbitrary and capricious, put that decision on hold. But today, the Supreme Court, in a 7-2 decision, said the administration appeared to be on firm footing with its change and can proceed with that change for now. What that means is those 500,000 immigrants in the United States could now, in the next 30 days, see their status revoked. They will be forced to leave the country unless they have some other kind of legal status, Alex. And as the dissent in this case, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sonia Sotomayor said today, that is undervaluing and devastating for a lot of those families who had come here legally and set up lives here, Alex.
All right.
So even asking for humanitarian asylum, because the places that you came from are violent, war-torn, and more than likely, if you return, you may die. Oh, but because again, Taco Taco wants to fulfill a promise about deporting all legal immigrants, and again, this just goes to show you the level of BS that's out there. But again, this is also scary because you have a conservative Supreme Court that is going along with it, a conservative leading Supreme Court that's going along with it. So two things that I will still take out of this. Number one, the Supreme Court needs to have a term limit. It does. It shouldn't be lifetime. It shouldn't be lifetime just because we have now seen, number one, it shouldn't be lifetime. I think Supreme Court should serve in the same terms as the president. That's just me. I also think that that there needs to be a balance. There doesn't need to be more conservative than progressive or vice versa. There does need to be a balance. But again, when you have off balance, we have more conservatives than you do progressives. These types of decisions are the ones I worry about because they can go 50-50. They always usually go the way of Taco. Because what does Taco say at the time? Oh, well, we'll see you in court and we'll go to the Supreme Court. And my thing is, as it's been before, it is way too convenient for an administration to constantly go to the Supreme Court that easy within the same year things happen. It's like Taco has a fast food drive straight to the Supreme Court to where, again, he will sit there and he feels confident. And for a second, you really can't blame the guy because it's almost like going to a home field advantage. Oh, well, these are conservative Supreme Court judges. They overrule the other ones. We should have no problem here. And yet, if you're an illegal immigrant or not, it is hard to do anything in this country right now without being pulled over by empowered masked Gestapo, aka ICE and Department of Homeland Security, that you will be questioned, you'll be asked for papers, or you'll be whisked away to an area that nobody knows where you're at. Like I'm saying, I can understand why some immigrants or some people are leaving. But I keep on saying, you keep deporting all these people soon enough, you're going to see why that's a mistake. And trust me, farmers and those in the service industry are already experiencing that. But moving right along, guys, I wanted to cover these two stories as well before we get to our feel good segment, as well as why the idiot of the idiot of the week, I should say. I need to start that as a segment. The GOP idiot of the week. But Secretary of Health RFK has produced a study that is full of misrepresentations, incorrections, and citations that don't work. Shocking.
Health Secretary Robert Kennedy has promised to use the, quote, gold standard of science to make America healthy again. But a new report from his health department is facing scrutiny because of several inaccuracies. ABC's Perry Russum has details. Perry, good morning.
Andrew, good morning to you. The White House is standing by Kennedy's report even after an updated version was needed to correct several false citations. This morning, the White House defending Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again report, even as experts raise concerns about its accuracy.
Does the White House have confidence that the information coming from HHS can be trusted?
Yes, we have complete confidence in Secretary Kennedy and his team at HHS.
The 72-page report on everything from food safety to prescription drugs included more than 500 citations to back up claims about certain topics. For example, in a section on teen depression rates, a research paper by Dr. Catherine Keyes was cited, but Dr. Keyes says she never wrote that paper.
The ranges of estimates that were in the statement are not based on my work and work that I know.
At least 2 research journals also confirming they are not able to find research cited in the government's report. The White House dismissing the mistakes as formatting issues.
But it does not negate the substance of the report, which, as you know, is one of the most transformative health reports that has ever been released by the federal government.
An updated version did remove mention of some reports that do not exist, replacing them with other sources. The new version also appeared to soften some language. In one case, the original report claimed certain advertisements led parents to overestimate ADHD prevalence. The revised report says the ads potentially have that effect. At the same time, Secretary Kennedy is proposing a major shift in how the government shares medical research, potentially cutting ties with top medical journals.
We're probably going to stop publishing in the Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA, and those other journals because they're all corrupt.
And Kennedy has called for more scrutiny of childhood vaccines and wants to address what he calls over-medication and undernourishment of kids. The White House is asking Congress for $500 million to support his initiative.
So, this is why I keep saying, whenever it comes to RFK, he's an idiot. He's a guy who has no health background. He's not a doctor. He's not a research scientist. He's never been a physician. He's actually never been a person of care. You know what he is? He is a guy that has means, time, and a little bit of a serial killer. The reason why I'm getting at is, guys, this was the guy who decided to take parts of a whale home and inspect it, who allegedly left the carcass of a bear in Central Park, who, had brain lesions. And if you haven't noticed, the man always needs a throat lozenge every 5 seconds. I mean, just one good cough will knock that out. That's all I'm saying. But decided to do a Make America Healthy Again report that's full of misinformation, citations that do not exist, and yet all of it has been proven incorrect. Shocking! Because the man is an anti-vaxxer. And of course, him and his push for some odd freaking reason, it's like autism is his white whale. It's like, dude, you're not the guy to talk about autism, to talk about diagnosis, to talk about the spectrum, to talk about anything. This is why the previous Secretary of Health had to have experience, at least a background. At the same time, you're talking about not publishing in most of the most famous and well-versed medical journals because they're all corrupt. Really? How? Because you believe it? This comes from a guy that swam in a creek, a bacteria-infested creek with no issues. This is also the same guy that sat there and said during the measles outbreak that it can be countered with helpings of vitamin A to where parents, unfortunately, who listen to this idiot, endanger their kids from basically poisoning their kids with too many amounts of vitamin A. This is also the same guy that, is involved in anti-vaxxer cases. So now he's like, well, what if our children are getting too many vaccinations? Have you not seen the list of diseases that were prevented? Because beforehand, these diseases were outbreaks, just like measles. Measles could be, again, silenced if people just stop being idiots. And I mean you anti-vaxxers. If you guys stop being idiots and just get vaccinated. See, it's just like COVID. When COVID came out and the vaccines were out, how many of you so-called quote-unquote virologists out there, oh, well, we don't know what's in that vaccine. It could actually harm us. Versus the alternative, death. Because again, we've covered on this podcast those that were literally and figuratively on their deathbeds, and they all said the same thing. I wish I got the vaccine at the time when it was offered. Now, what does it mean about RFK? RFK doesn't believe in vaccines. For some odd reason, he believes in the fact that, anybody that sounds like they're just 2 seconds away from a big cough to clear out their lungs, all that mucus out from the lungs, not the person you want to follow. At the same time, his citations are full of crap. But yet, he's the Secretary of Health. So I will say this in encountering Mr. RFK, listen to your doctors. They're the ones that went to medical school. They're the ones that did their residency. They're the ones that do the research. So yes, I'm going to listen to my doctors because they actually use science. They don't use it as a buzzword like RFK does. That being said, guys, speaking of immigration, their protests are popping up everywhere from the East Coast to the West Coast, and I am all for it.
This morning, new pushback against immigration operations in several so-called sanctuary cities from the West Coast to the East Coast.
This isn't about public safety. This is about cruelty and power and fear engendered by the Trump administration.
In California, a popular San Diego restaurant closing 2 of its locations for days after immigration agents swarmed the dining room, launching flashbangs to disperse a crowd and arresting 4 people. Bystanders fighting back.
The execution of this was needlessly reckless. Doing this on a Friday night during dinner service at a very popular restaurant.
And in Massachusetts, new calls for the release of a high school student. Immigration officials arrested 18-year-old Marcelo Gomes on his way to volleyball practice. He's from Brazil. Police were originally searching for his father, who they say has a history of reckless driving. But when police stopped the car, which was not speeding at the time, they found Marcelo driving instead. They realized his student visa had expired and brought him to an immigration facility.
I didn't say he was dangerous. I said he's in this country illegally, and we're not going to walk away from anybody.
Marcelo's lawyers say the teen has lived in the U.S. since he was 5, has no criminal history, and is eligible to remain here as an asylum seeker. A judge now issuing a 72-hour stay, barring officers from removing him from the country until the courts can review the case. Federal agents say in Massachusetts alone last month, they arrested nearly 1,500 immigrants in a sweep dubbed Operation Patriot.
Now, officials say most of those arrested in Operation Patriot were violent offenders, sex offenders, or drug offenders. Now, despite these arrests, the Trump administration is pushing ICE agents to step up their deportation efforts.
This morning, new pushback against.
It's this whole thing about deportation and the fact that they are doing anything and everything to get rid of people. Regardless, I mean, whether it's adults or kids, a high school student. Are you freaking kidding me? A high school student? That's the problem? And I'm just throwing it out there. They don't care because their bigotry, their racism is showing. They're not wearing hoods anymore. And that they're circumventing, again, the whole thing of not having due process screams volumes. And I do mean screams volumes about exactly what they're saying. But at the same time, guys, this is why resisting, this is why protesting, keep doing it. Again, like I said, no, these ICE agents are all masked up. I wonder why. Because everybody else who's served to protect, you can see who they are. But yeah, for ICE agents, they had to be protected. And it goes back to my whole thing with law enforcement. But that's a discussion for another day. So the last thing that I got, guys, is, well, we keep on talking about that Republicans do not care. Republicans do not care about their constituents. And for a while back, we had town halls. They had town halls, which were not good ideas, because there are some people who did vote Republican are now starting to be like, or starting to sober up. That being said, some Republicans decided to go back to their town halls regarding this bill. This bill that I have said multiple times cuts Medicare and Medicaid. And well, let's just say one of the Republicans out there, especially senators, needs to work on their PR skills.
In the House, but today it was Republican Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa's turn. She faced her constituents at a town hall she held at 7:30 in the morning.
So when we're talking about the corrections in this reconciliation bill, again, it's corrections of overpayments and people that have not been eligible for these programs by law as it is currently written. So when you are arguing about illegals that are receiving Medicaid benefits, 1.4 million, 1.4, they are not eligible. So they will be coming off. So people are not, well, we all are going to die. So for heaven's sakes, folks. Okay, no, but what you don't want to do is listen to me when I say that we are going to focus on those that are most vulnerable. Those that meet the eligibility requirements for Medicaid, we will protect. We will protect them.
Just to be clear, there's like 10 million plus American citizens that are going to be kicked off Medicaid, according to the CBO's own estimates, again, run by a Republican currently. Now, I suppose the best thing that can be said about that response from Joni Ernst, we're all going to die, is that it is, I suppose, a refreshingly honest articulation of what I would say is a kind of a core Republican ethos, at least when it comes to policymaking for the poor and vulnerable. It's an ethos we have seen time and time again, particularly remember during the COVID pandemic, you saw a fair amount of Republican members at the time saying, you know, we're all going to die. As you might expect, a reception for the senator's answer has not been glowing. It immediately made headlines both locally in Iowa and across the nation. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts tagged Ernst's words as the Republicans' new pitch for their bill, while Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota quipped, quote, "I thought my job as senator was to try to keep my constituents alive." Having said all that, this is a 1,000-page bill. There's a lot more wildly destructive stuff that's hiding in there that's flying under the radar. We're going to cover some of it as this goes on. One example is a very, very small but dangerous provision that is meant to aid Donald Trump's assault on the federal judiciary, the only one of the three branches of government providing any semblance of oversight to his reckless and often illegal agenda. Now, the provision that the House Republicans put in the bill could allow him to skirt federal contempt orders, things that his Department of Justice has been flirting with basically day in, day out. This week, voters tried to make Republican Congressman Mike Flood of Nebraska answer for that.
I do not agree with that section that was added to that bill. This provision was unknown to me when I voted for the bill.
This morning, Senator Ernst was also made to answer for it.
As I'm sure you're aware, but apparently many of the representatives were not aware at the time, nestled within the 1,000 pages of this bill was a small clause which, for the first time in our nation's history, in fact, effectively prohibits the federal courts from enforcing contempt orders. So, ma'am, my question for you today is, will you pledge to us, our constituents who you serve, that you will not vote for this bill or any other bill that contains this poisonous provision?
Okay, and thank you for clarifying. So one thing that I will explain, because we have a lot of subject matter experts here in the room, is that the House has written one version of a bill. The Senate is taking up our own version of the bill. The two will be married together at some point. There is a rule called the Byrd Rule. Silence. So the Byrd Rule states that anything that goes into our package in the Senate, it can't be policy. It can't be policy. It has to be focused on mandatory spending. I don't know anything about that provision that talks about mandatory spending or revenues.
Now, I just got to say something real quick, in that I think a little condescending lecture to our own constituents. The Byrd Rule is enforced by the Senate parliamentarian who the Senate Republican majority just completely overrode last week to take out California's electric car vehicle regulations. There's no reason to think they're going to listen to the parliamentarian this time. And you may have noticed the senator's answer was about process rather than the actual substance of the provision. There's been this debate, I think, in our political discourse, and I myself go back and forth, about basically how much democracy is some abstract principle in the U.S. constitutional order that people are like, yeah. Or is it something that everyday real people actually care about and can rally behind? And here's the thing I want to leave you with. There are people who got up this morning at the crack of dawn in red Iowa, state with Republican representation, went for Trump, to go talk to their senator, doing everything they can as informed citizens because they do believe in this country's constitutional order and they are trying to protect it. And I think there are more of them than Republicans are betting on.
So what's crazy is, and I had to go back to Senator Joni Ernst for 1 second, because she was the catalyst. You know what it was? That was real honesty coming from her, because you already know the fact of Republicans doing town halls to where their constituents are very much angry, and rightfully so. And even more so that where she goes, well, we're all going to die. And what she says, well, we're all bound to die anyway. What a very morbid, yet you decided just to jump off the bridge on that one. This is why I keep saying, guys, these Republicans do not care. These Republicans all have literally sat there, said, well, we're all going to die. These Republicans have not read the bill that Taco is trying to push, saying that they did not see the intricacies of where judges' powers will be limited. So that way, Taco and his administration can run unchecked. There are other provisions in that bill, guys, that, again, should also be shot down. But Republicans are doing what they always do. They toe the company line. And, of course, I have said this before, if they do pass this bill, the only shining light that you have left is that this will be the last presidential term for Taco, in which that the Republicans will maintain majority of the House and Senate. I'm just being honest, because if Republicans push this and folks are kicked off Medicare and Medicaid and SNAP benefits are reduced and the middle and lower class have to pay more in taxes while the rich pays less and gets more breaks, trust and believe Republicans, whether they're senators, representatives, have marked their last days in Congress. And nothing is more scary to Taco than a House and a Senate of Democrats that are ticked off, that will gladly push things through that he will be forced to sign, which would be the outcome if this bill is passed. But this is in the hands of the senators right now, so we're definitely going to be on watch about that. But we're going to go move on to our Feel Good 7, guys. As usually how the Frack out here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, sometimes making your faith in humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thursday. We want to leave you guys out some good vibrations and whatnot than the latest champion of the Scripps Spelling Bee.
Back on the play today, the winner of the Scripps National Spelling Bee, 13-year-old Faison Zaki from Allen, Texas, beat 242 other competitors to take the championship title. It was the 100th anniversary of this tradition, and Faison joins us now. Congratulations. How's it going?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing great this morning. I probably got more sleep than you did.
Yeah, I only got 2 hours last night.
How are you feeling this morning?
Definitely tired. So after this, I'm probably going to sleep, but definitely also excited from the adrenaline. So, yeah.
I'll bet you are. One of the other reasons you're tired is you have quite a training regimen. Why don't you walk everybody through how you prepared for this tournament?
So every day, once I get home from school, I open a dictionary and look for words that I don't recognize, and I write it down on like a Google Sheet or a Google Doc. So I do this for about 5 to 6 hours on
Every day?
Weekdays. Yeah, and then 7 to 8 on weekends. So yeah.
Wow. 5 to 6 hours on weekdays, 7 to 8 on weekends. That is a full-time job on top of school. Are you going to miss it? Or are you gonna...
Yeah.
But you don't seem too bothered by it. You also
it's.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm just gonna say, like it's not that bad. Like I enjoy doing it. I am glad it's over now, though.
What's your next challenge?
So I really enjoy math. So maybe I can try like getting into like the International Math Olympiad. But yeah.
So I mean, you impress a lot of people with your casual style on stage. You're wearing your lucky hoodie, right there. You call the judges bro.
Yeah.
How did you develop that confidence? How did you develop the confidence? Are you really as calm as you appear?
I mean, yeah. So like, I mean, I've been in this for 7 years. So like, at this point, I'm not really that nervous. I'm definitely confident, but not too overconfident. I also have that like casual style. So yeah, I mean, I know I kind of at this point I do know Dr. Bailey a little bit personally. So I just called him bro, like in the spur of the moment. But, yeah.
We saw you hit the ground after the win. Tell us what was going through your mind in that moment.
It was all a blur. I was just so excited, and like after I spelled my word, you could hear like at the end when I spelled my word, I was kind of like losing breath, and like those last couple letters I was like gasping for air. So I was just like hyperventilating from like the excitement. But yeah.
I've never even heard of your winning word before. Why don't you spell it for everybody and tell us what it means?
So the word is éclaircissement, ECLAIRCISSEMENT, and it just means like enlightenment. But yeah, and it's from French.
So when you heard it, did you know exactly what it meant? Did you know the word, or did you kind of work your way through it?
I immediately recognized it. So if you go back to the recording, you can see like as soon as Dr. Bailey said the word, I just went for it. So yeah, I definitely didn't like do it fast, especially because of the mishap that happened a couple of rounds early. But yeah.
Well, congratulations. You did great. It was so much fun to have you on with us this morning. Enjoy your nap.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I don't blame him either. I take a nap too. Definitely congratulations to that young man. The Scripps National Spelling Bee is a big thing. Fazan Zaki, I forgot to pronounce your name. I apologize. Again, that to win that and the words that you got to spell, that ain't easy. So, and of course, that man has the greatest poker face. You know what? If you ever go into Texas Hold'em, you got a future, kid. That's all I'm saying. But definitely congratulations to him. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. Thank you all for liking, for watching, for sharing, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we get out of here. Always press record. Definitely check them out at APR TV. Why? Because shows like How the Frack We Got Here can be seen there. Available on the Roku channel or Amazon Fire TV. Definitely check that out and other shows on that network. You will not be disappointed. Also, BlurStation.com. Again, guys, a table that has our content, our viewership, most importantly, needs our patronage. Movies, television shows, anime, things of that nature, and more are coming to Blur Station. Definitely join now while it's still fresh and hot. $10.99 a month to join Blur Station. If you do want to join, please go to BlurStation.com. Hit the Join Now button, select the Blur's Eye View Affinity membership, select my name, Black Spartan. And again, $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station, and Blur Station can be seen on all smart devices. Let's run this up the same way you guys ran up Tubi. That's all I'm saying. And finally, runforoffice.org. I keep saying this all the time, guys. You want to know how Miles for Liberty did it? You want to know how the crazies did it? this is how they started doing it. Simply put, if you feel the need to run, whether it's locally or nationally for office, definitely put in your address there, guys, and you'll get started the process of how you can get your name on a ballot, how you can run, and hopefully that you can actually be elected and do some change, unlike Republicans. Again, guys, runforoffice.org is definitely one of the many places you can start, but the one that I highly recommend. As we keep on saying for the show, guys, How the Frack We Got Here can be found on all socials, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and all that good stuff. All together, guys, you can definitely find it there. Like, share, and subscribe. Much like PBS, we cannot do any of this without your support. Also, personally, for me, Black_Spartan615 is also my social as well. You can like and follow me there. I usually chat about everything, guys. Just don't be weird. I don't have to start a whole blocking phase for again people that just doesn't know how to be decent human beings. But the last things I'll say about the Frack right here, guys, again, I keep saying this because this becomes an issue whenever Taco runs something every day. Don't doom scroll. Guys, please protect your peace, protect your energy, do something that makes you laugh, that makes you happy. Check on your friends, whether it's a phone call or a text. At the same time, guys, protect your peace. Do something that enlightens your mind, makes you better. Because we have to get away from the fact that although our smart devices are great, we don't want to be stuck with every time Taco tweets something because that's what he does on a daily basis. Don't be like Taco. Get out there and touch grass and enjoy life. And trust me, if anything, the Simpsons haven't been wrong yet. That also being said, guys, How the Frack We Got Here, we're all about informing you guys. We try to do our best to give you all the information allowing you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a logical perspective that goes with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Congress. Maybe one freaking day. Electing our first Black woman to be the first Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up but our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and I promise we'll get through this. Peace.